A new law has officially banned employees from ever taking sick leave again. Next on his Chaile Time.
It's Chaile Time. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Chaile Time. Toby, lekker skars.
Lekker skaars, né? Jette maar ons werk, Tsepo. Jette. The illegal foreigners, my brother.
Hey, my brother. You know, even this morning I was just going through my TikTok and then my algorithm now, it's focused on that.
What, on illegal foreigners?
Yes. So now, people, which is now the government has budgeted 600 million to say, we're going to stop you if you come with violence on the 30th and whatnot. It was announced yesterday by Kachika.
They're going to do what?
They're going to spend 600 million.
Our government. On doing what?
On making sure that there's no violence on the 30th of...
Listen, I heard, you know what the president of Zimbabwe said last week?
Yes.
You know, there's this whole thing about, I've read in the news, I actually read in the news last week, that South Africa wants to deport the people back to their countries and get those countries to pay for it. You know what the Zimbabwe president said?
How you got there?
You walk to South Africa, you're going to walk back to South Africa.
That's the same way you're going to come back home.
And to only come back after elections, because apparently they also have elections, because you know that all the foreigners who went to South Africa are apparently supporting the opposition in Zimbabwe. So only come back later.
And then now he passed the law to say he can extend his term for 7 years. It's not
I've seen that too, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, so I'm seeing that officials now are going to companies, or this morning actually I saw they were in, you can name and shame, it's on the public domain, Boxback wholesaler somewhere.
Okay.
And then they started checking.
Yes, they're clamping down these guys, eh?
Checking if people have got proper documents and that and that. And also remember now, there's this argument of scarce skill.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so now if you can employ a cashier who doesn't have documentation, or if they do have documentation, is that a scarce skill? So there's still going to be a lot of arguments. But prominent politicians, some of them are saying, we want to see after the 30th if you're going to get those jobs. If people are gone on the 30th, are you going to... So there's a lot of back and forth going on.
But is the 30th of June a real thing? Because Ramaphosa tends to disagree.
The March and March movement says it's going to be a peaceful thing. Just to say, people, we are tired of this.
So it's like a struck action where they're going to just push out all the illegal foreigners.
Yeah, but they're not going to use violence or anything or bend tires.
They're going to ask you nicely.
That's it. Actually, it's been happening.
It's going to be a suggestion.
No, but it's been happening. Joburg CBD now, it's starting to be clean again.
But Tsepo, we are getting flooded with inquiries on this whole issue of how to deal with illegal foreigners. I've got a new client even that I'm seeing on Friday, or hope to become a client, and it is what? Illegal foreigners, okay? But interesting, one of our existing clients, Home Affairs, about 2 months pitch up there, and about 8 of their staff ran out of the back door. I know we were all involved with that and whatever. But yes, the thing now. So yesterday I got a call from the company. One of the foreigners, they got a South African ID, which the company now obviously thought is legit. And when Home Affairs walked in there and checked the ID, it's actually a fabricated ID, so he ran away. We absconded him in the meantime, but now it's been 2 months, no trace of him. Let's just, for this podcast's sake, say his name is Thabo. His name is not Thabo, but let's just say his name is Thabo, okay, for illustration purposes. So Thabo's got a certain South African ID in terms of his ID book. Yesterday, the real Thabo pitched up at the company. And he's saying his SARS is a mess and the company needs to sort it out. So the company's been paying PAYE and so for many years. So from that perspective, there's no fault on the company.
Yes.
But still, Thabo sitting, knocking on the door, waiting for management to sort out his nonsense.
Yeah, you see, it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, yes, I had to get my lawyer involved. So it seems so far that the legal advice is, look, besides the verification issue in terms of the Immigration Act, it's not the company that committed the crime. They did faithfully pay all the taxes and whatever, So I suppose it's a matter of the company will probably have to, well, they say submit some kind of form to declare there was fraud, and then it is a matter between Tabo and SARS to sort out, and I suppose the company will be involved in terms of cooperating with SARS or whatever. But it's messy, eh?
Just before we talk about our heated topic today, our legal assistant, you remember a few months ago or 2 months ago, she got her first arbitration award, where she won arbitration.
Yes.
This week she got her first withdrawal. She got someone to withdraw the case.
Is this one about 2 days ago?
Yes.
I wanted to ask her still. Did the person withdraw?
Yes, the person.
Oh, we need to do something.
Yeah.
That's quite something special.
Yeah. So, but this week already we've got, like, including that case, we've got 3 cases kicked out of the CCM.
No, that one's getting good now.
Yeah, she is getting good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we call her our shop steward, just by the way. But you know that when I have issues with the staff, I tell her, she sort you guys out.
What are we talking about today?
New law bans sick leave. New law bans sick leave. There's breaking news this morning that a new law has officially banned sick leave in the workplace. Therefore, no more staying at home, no more hospital beds, no more getting paid to heal. Or that's what the employer would hope will happen. That's it for today. I don't know, over the last couple of months, maybe years or so, and also just like the illegal foreigner situation is a thing now, what's becoming a thing in my life now, and I know in yours too,
Yes.
is dealing with sick leave. And I've just had it. I just thought, that we should have a podcast. This podcast is for employers. We're going to educate you on the law. So obviously it's for employees too. But hopefully we can redress. Maybe we can put our union hat on and we're going to redress some unfairness in the workplace. Tsepo, how many employers are out there? They hate sick leave. They can't stand employees being sick, being hospitalized, and they must pay for it. It's actually a thing. It really is. We have a client, okay? If an employee gets flu and he goes to a doctor and he gets booked off, let's say for 2 days, I must then investigate the validity of that sick note. Why? Because 6 months ago it happened also.
Not 2 weeks ago, not 8 weeks ago.
6 months ago. It's like the second time this year now that this guy's got flu.
Of which...
And I'm like, and then I have to go through the whole record of the last 3 years of how many times this guy was sick, and let's start the incapacity process. The other day, and then there are more serious illnesses, people getting cancer or whatever, and they go for operations, they get hospitalized for a couple of days and they have to be booked off for like a month or so. And then the employers, listen, this person must go, we can't. And I was just like, and this one day, who I'm talking about, the HR administrator there contacted me, listen, this guy needs to go. And I actually told him, imagine it was you, imagine you get cancer or something, you must be hospitalized.
Okay.
Yes, see. So this whole debate about also, capital versus labor coming to the fore, I think next week we're going to talk about trade unions and so, but that's for them.
For them, yeah.
But still, them fighting for your rights. But often a workplace does not have a trade union. So there's just employees at the mercy of capitalists. And this is not all employers, don't get me wrong, okay? But many employers, I'm telling you now, if it wasn't for laws, you won't get annual leave, you won't get sick leave, you will not get salary increases. You'll be paid with apples. And this is the thing with sick leave. It is just remarkable how many employers, they just cannot understand that we have an immune system.
And we are human beings.
Yeah.
I sometimes I fail to understand, but anyway, I think we said something earlier, about when someone is sitting here, they like getting blinded by their seat sitting here.
Yeah.
They don't engage into reality.
That's true of all of us. We all have a certain seat we sit on, and we look at life through that lens, and therefore we have blind spots. So in negotiation, for instance, it's important that you try to put yourself in the seat of that person to understand his world.
Anyway, what does the law say?
So I think part of the problem is that employers are many times ignorant of the law. I think employers, and I'm talking here business owners and CEOs, they don't really know what the law says, so that's why they have HR managers and so. But there's something interesting that I see in the workspace where HR managers and I suppose operations managers, they will support a policy or an idea that if somebody is off sick and they can't produce a medical note, that you now have to discipline the person. So I want to go through section 23 quickly that deals with proof of incapacity. And this is the basic conditions of employment act, okay? So I just want to address quickly what the laws say about proof of incapacity, like a medical note. There are just 2 sections in here, which is quite short. And just have a bit of a discussion about, let's say, what the purpose of this medical note is and to what extent do you discipline. We just need to clear that out quickly. So let's just read section 23 quickly of the basic conditions of employment act. The heading is proof of incapacity. So this is now, so section 22 deals with sick leave.
Yes.
Section 23 deals actually with the medical note, okay? So subsection 1, an employer is not required to pay, and that's a very important key word, to pay. Not you must discipline, but to pay, okay? An employee, in terms of section 22, if the employee has been absent from work for more than 2 consecutive days, okay? So in other words, from 3 days and more, okay? Or on more than 2 occasions during an 8-week period and on request by the employer. That's normally sorted out through the contract or the policy that say you must be off, okay? You must bring a doctor's note. And on request by the employer does not produce a medical certificate stating that the employee was unable to work for the duration of the employee's absence on account of sickness or injury. Just quickly a note here, I'm not going to go through what must be on a medical certificate. I think that's maybe for another day. I want to address the elephant in the room, disciplining employees for sick notes, and, let people know that there is a law that provides for sick leave, by the way. Then subsection 2, the medical certificate must be issued and signed by a medical practitioner or any other person who is certified to diagnose and treat patients and who is registered with a professional council established by an act of parliament. So this is basically what the laws say. Okay. Now, if you read further, in principle, an employee typically gets 30 days sick leave over a period of 36 months. That is a bit of a reinterpretation of the actual provision, but it comes down to more or less 30 days for every 3-year cycle. But what does it mean? It means that an employer don't have to pay an employee. If an employee's been booked off for sick for more than 2 consecutive days or for at least 2 days off over a 8-week period. Upon request by the employer, they must produce a medical note. But then it goes on to say this medical note must have been issued by a person that is certified to diagnose patients, and the person is registered with a council that is recognized by an act of parliament. So typically we're talking here the HSPCA, okay, the Health and Professional Council of South Africa. And we're going to address the issue about traditional healers also in a moment. But now here's the thing. So what is the purpose of Section 23? And I think there are a bit of confusion here because I hear a lot of disciplinary action if you don't submit a doctor's note. Tshepo, Section 23 doesn't say where a person must or must not go when he's sick. It doesn't say you must go to that doctor, or if you're sick, you mustn't go to this kind of doctor. It just says if you want payment,
you need to
go to this kind of doctor, the one that's registered,
that is registered, yes,
with the council that's
and
been
you must bring
acknowledged.
the proof of incapacity.
Yes. So if you want to be paid, you must bring that note. It doesn't mean you can't go to the traditional healer. But now I've got this question. Why do some employers now, if you don't bring the doctor's note, they discipline you? Where is that coming from? Because this section only deals with payment.
Now I feel guilty because we do that a lot.
Now I understand that you have a policy and that if you don't bring a doctor's note in terms of your policy, I suppose that's a breach of policy and procedures. I suppose that is misconduct, okay? But still, strictly speaking here, where does that policy come from? Sometimes it comes from the ignorant idea that the law says so. That if you don't bring a doctor's note, you must now be disciplined. Maybe we shouldn't have a policy like that. Because this law, unless I suppose, if there's a real legitimate operational requirements, don't get me wrong here, if there's a problem with sick leave abuse in the workplace, have your policy. But I'm just saying, don't say because the law says so. Because the law doesn't say so. Section 23 say an employer don't have to pay you. That's it. It doesn't prescribe who the employee must, where they must go to when they're sick. Now keep one eye on the Employment Equity Act here that deals with discrimination. So we need to have sensitivity for our cultures also. And this is where, if a person wants to go to a traditional healer or any other person, you must be careful that you discipline the guy for going to a traditional healer. Okay, so there are some landmark case laws also, okay, and I'm not going to mention names here. And even in those case laws, the issue is the fact that an employee gets disciplined for not going to this kind of doctor. But you can't do that because an employee is free to go wherever they feel like they want to go. But if you go to a doctor who is not registered within council, aligned with the Act of Parliament, then the employer don't have to pay you. That's something completely different.
Yeah.
So the purpose of Section 23 is not to deal with disciplinary issues. It's only there to deal with payment issues. So, okay, so let's just talk a bit quickly, another elephant in the room, the traditional healers.
Yes.
SEPO. Often employees will go to traditional healers, they bring a certificate, and employers now get these kind of calls to, do we accept
The sick note from the
from a traditional healer? Now remember what we said here. If you want payment, not discipline, payment, you must produce a medical note upon request by the employer. And this medical note must have been issued by a person that's certified to diagnose patients. That's step one. And that, let's call that person a doctor for illustration purposes. That doctor is registered at the council that is certified with an Act of Parliament. And that's where you currently get the ACSPCA. But what about traditional healers?
Yeah, they say traditional healers something.
The Interim Traditional Healers Council of
South Africa.
Yeah. But where do we stand with that? Because a lot of employers don't actually know. I think a lot of companies do know there's this council, okay, but has it been registered fully yet? So here's the thing. Right now at this stage, the Interim Traditional Healers Council of South Africa, the registration process is not complete because there are still regulations outstanding that specifically, among others, deals with the registration of traditional healers. So a traditional healer cannot at this stage register with the council. So from a Section 23 perspective, they don't comply currently with Section 23.
They are not recognized.
They're not recognized yet. But that only means an employer don't have to pay you if you are absent for sick leave and produce a medical note from a traditional healer. But that doesn't mean you must now discipline the guy or dismiss him, because that's what's happening in the workplace. He picks up with a traditional healer's note, then suddenly it's fraud.
Automatically, by just looking at
it. It's automatically fraud. But that is what we must be careful for, because that employee, he has a right to go to wherever he feels comfortable that somebody can heal him. So you can't just discipline the guy by virtue of the fact that he didn't go to a doctor in terms of Section 23.
So what about that point that says, if I go to consult, but that facility on its own is fraudulent, but I didn't know that it was fraudulent.
That's a good point.
that they knew that they are not registered properly, but I didn't know as an employee. I saw it and then I went through it, I paid, they gave me a note, I gave it to work.
Yeah. So let's just, that falls under the ambit of discipline.
Yes.
There are certain scope where you can discipline employees. Obviously, if employees obtained a sick note fraudulently, okay, then that subject or opens the employee up to disciplinary action. Of course, that means. There's a recent case law ruling that came out that speaks, that confirms that in terms of the Evidence Act, that a sick note in itself is hearsay evidence. So an employer may ask for further evidentiary support. For instance, you can ask the employee or the healer for an affidavit, for instance, to confirm the sick note. Or any other further investigation. Sometimes, you'll phone the doctor and you'll find they don't exist, or you actually pitch up at the consulting rooms and then you realize it's only a field. There's nothing really there. So you can further investigate, and in those circumstances you can take disciplinary action. But in terms of what you mentioned, there's a caveat here. Okay, there are also case law that says that if you want to discipline or potentially dismiss an employee for submitting a fraudulent sick note, the employee must have been aware it's fraud. Because really, a person, if you're sick, you walk into a doctor's room, you take it on face value, in good faith, you get a note and you show it to your doctor, or to your employer. If it comes out later that it's fraudulent, the doctor is not certified, or it's a fake, if you were not aware of that, then you must be careful before you take disciplinary action, because this is what the courts actually said. The employee must be aware. So keeping in mind, if you charge somebody for dishonesty, he must intentionally try to deceive you. Okay? So it's going to be very difficult to dismiss or discipline somebody for fraud if he didn't intentionally try to defraud you, or he wasn't actually aware of this. But I must also say, most fake sick notes, you can actually see it, and there's no way the employee couldn't know it. You will see them manipulating the notes.
Someday getting occupied from internet cafes. Yeah.
And you will see the address on the sick note. You go visit there, it's only a field.
Yes.
So then the employee can't say, oh, I didn't know. It becomes obvious. It becomes what they say, common cause. You see, Tsepo. So you can, under certain circumstances, discipline, but you must be careful in terms of unfair discrimination. Section 23 specifically deals with payment for being absent.
So now that we are addressing this now, do you think it's going to lend to the ears that we want this message to lend, that
I think
a human being is allowed to be sick, and as long as all the boxes are ticked,
this conversation is a small puzzle that's
Yes.
part of a larger puzzle.
Okay.
So I can already hear the audience saying, but what about this? What about that? So this is a very specific conversation. And this is the thing I enjoy about labor, okay? Is you have the interest of the employees, but also the interest of the employers.
Yeah.
So even though we corrected employers here, there's a bigger context from the seat of an employer also. It's easy to look at from an individual level saying, I was sick, therefore I've got a sick note. But if you look at it from the employer's perspective, he deals with 2,000 employees, of which 10% is sick every single day.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money. At the end of the day, you need to keep the doors open, And also, there's this livid issue of people actually taking advantage.
Exactly.
People going and buy sick notes. It's actually a real problem for employers. So I'm not trying to deny that this is a real problem for employers too. But this is where other mechanisms and policies and procedures can come in to deal with that. For instance, one kind of illness, I suppose, that's becoming extremely prevalent is depression in the workplace, mental illness. Here you need, for instance, your assistance programs, your wellness programs. Some small thing we, for instance, do is we give our staff one paid Friday a month, just to try to the other staff, Tsepo.
No, I'm off on Monday, so don't worry.
You get to choose your day,
Yes.
But still, companies need to be alive that disciplining for fraud sick notes does not address the underlying cause of the problem.
Yeah.
But for employers, I suppose it is a problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think another thing which is giving employers a sleepless night, it's when someone disappears, don't communicate, don't send a message, don't update, And
Yeah.
when they come back, they rock up with a...
So it's often the misconduct around
yes,
it.
with a sick note. And then they will believe that, but it's unfair for you to discipline me because here's the sick note.
But Seppo, let us not let
Dwell too much.
employers off the hook in this episode.
No, I'm not getting them off the...
Because they are guilty also of not being human enough. Some employers, you can't be sick, Seppo.
I understand, because this is the...
Maybe another episode we can talk about the context of sick leave in the workplace.
Okay.
But in this episode, employer.
Okay, comrade direct.
Some employers, they like, you're not allowed to get sick.
I fully understand, and then this is something that we've been dealing with.
Like some employers, you're not allowed to get pregnant either, né?
You see, now you're opening another one. You're opening another one.
Anyway, Seppo, that's for this week.
Okay.
So hopefully we can bring some message across, a message of humanity, decency.
100%. Job reviews?
Yeah, as always, fresh vacancies, lots of vacancies in our networks. So let's stay for job review.
Yeah, before we say goodbye, I think you said there's someone sitting on the other side and asking, what about this? How about this? I think we can engage on the comments and then so that we can interact with them and then see.
Yeah, we actually do. When we do get comments, we actually read through the comments.
Yes.
Now, Chaile Time is not a free consulting service, so we may not always engage back because sometimes people ask us for advice and whatever. Yes. That's not really the point. The point of Chaile Time is to educate, okay? Yes. But when we do, we actually do read the comments, and when we see a nice conversation there, we actually do Chaile Time episodes based on that. So if people want to add to the conversation, by all means do so, and we can address it in conversations. Yeah,
100%.
Also, yeah.
All right.
Good.
Thanks for watching. See you next. Is it next week or next time?
Next time on It's Chaile Time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. Let's have a look at some of the vacancies posted nationwide on our Harmony People's Network this week. First up, Rico is hiring a HR advisor in Johannesburg. Lutralog is looking for a process plant operator. Tara Healthcare has a vacant position for a forklift operator, reporting to the operations manager based in Kempton Park. Last but not least, the Courier Guy is seeking a people operations administrator in Johannesburg. For the full information of the mentioned positions, how to apply, as well as more available positions, find the vacancy link in the description. You will also find a link to a useful video on how to compose a winning CV and have a successful interview. Tune in again next week for more Harmony vacancies.